Think of your life as a snapshot, hundreds of little snapshots. You never know when that snapshot's going to change, but there's always hope. Try to wait for that next picture.
Hey there, my name is Sean, and this is Suicide Noted. On this podcast, I talk with suicide attempt survivors so that we can hear their stories. Every year around the world, millions of people try to take their own lives, and we almost never talk about it. And when we do talk about it, many of us, including me, aren't very good at it. So, one of my goals with this podcast is to have more conversations, and hopefully better conversations with attempt survivors. I'm certainly going to keep trying. Now, we are talking about suicide. This may not be a good fit for everyone. Please take that into account before you listen. I do hope you listen because there is so much to learn. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to share your story, I'd love to talk. Please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com or on social media @suicidenoted. We really appreciate everyone who has listened to these stories since July. Please, keep listening. Let other people know about it. And I know I say this a bunch. If you listen on Apple, rate and review this podcast. It really does help. And finally, we have a Patreon page. If you have an interest in helping us out with a financial contribution, and we could use the help, there are some costs associated with producing this podcast. I will include that in the show notes. Have a look. We could use the help. But again, either way, thank you. Today, I am talking with Rueben. Rueben lives in Ohio, and he is a suicide attempt survivor. Hi, Rueben. Well, I appreciate you reaching out and wanting to talk about stuff with me here. I do.
Well, thank you. Thank you for letting me have the opportunity.
For sure.
Um,
My pleasure.
I've been want to tell my story here for a while. Just haven't had the opportunity to.
Sure. So you are in a garage in Ohio. You had reached out to me in the last few weeks, I believe, and wanted to talk about your stuff, what you've gone through. I'd like to understand, because so few people are open and willing to talk about these things. How did you come to be okay about talking about it publicly?
Well, I'd known at least 3 people that had actually completed suicide. One of them was my neighbor, her son, and then 2 other ones. One of them was from the church, and another one was just an acquaintance. I felt like people need to understand this and quit with the stigmatism of, oh, well, we've seen this just happen, and oh, well, we never saw it coming, or well, how could they do this?
Right.
And me being somebody that's been there, well, why not let them hear it from firsthand experience? Because obviously, unfortunately, the person that's passed, you can't call them up and be like, hey, what's going on? Unfortunately.
What did the 3 people that you knew that are no longer here, your neighbor and someone from the church and an acquaintance, and you had connected that with like the stigma, do you remember, did things happen? Did people say things in response to their deaths that made you think that's not okay?
Yeah, especially with my acquaintance. I think she ended up passing 2017, I believe, 17 or 18. Actually, I'd gone to school with her 3 boys and had known her, fairly well. Just growing up, I didn't really know she had any mental health problems like depression or anything like that. And then my sister called me on the phone and was like, oh, this acquaintance ended up shooting herself.
She used a gun.
Yeah. One of those things where you just never thought, but I'd gone to calling hours, that kind of thing, and everybody was just like dead silent. Didn't say much of anything. Like one of the weirdest calling hours I've ever been to. And everybody's like, oh, well, why did she do this? And why did this happen? All this kind of stuff. And I'm like, well, I've been there. And do you want to know why? Well, yeah. Well, in my experience, anyways, you get to the point where you can't handle a certain situation, you can't handle living with yourself, and then something pushes you over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, I'm like, that's unfortunately a good chance of what happened. Something pushed her over the edge, and it happened. A lot of what I've found, and I've done my research on like the mental health and how it all ties into the suicide. A lot of it is the suicide attempts are involuntary, I guess, like it just happens,
Right.
like a spur of the moment type of thing.
Right. Not planned necessarily.
In that moment, not really thought. Something pushes you over the edge, and then oh, boom, you either had an attempt or unfortunately completed a successful attempt. The other two, they pretty much people responded the same way. Why and how can somebody do this to themselves? And of course, they were using the general term of, well, why did they commit suicide and stuff? And I've told them, I'm like, wait a minute. First of all, it's not commit suicide because it's not like you're committing a crime.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of you completed. You either have attempts or you complete a suicide. And a lot of people that are survivors would agree that it's a completed suicide.
Yeah. Seems reasonable. Yes.
Right. But yeah, a lot of the reaction is the same. The whole question of why and how can it happen. But then on the same hand, when somebody like me or somebody else that's been there is straight up and forward with people, oh well, we don't want to hear that.
That's the
Well,
irony, right? Right. You say you want to know, but then somebody's going to tell you don't want to know.
yeah. So then why did you ask?
Right.
Well, I think it was going to be you were going to be that honest. Well,
Right. So
um,
you've tried to tell people in your experience why someone might do that, and then they sort of put walls up.
yeah. Well, and I mean, obviously, you can't narrow it down to exactly why did this person, end their life.
Sure.
But as a
Sure.
general, like from my experience, this is what would push you over the edge. This is why you would think that this is your only option. But yeah, like we said, they hear the truth and they don't want to hear it no more.
So what happened with you, Ruben, in that you said you've been through this? Do you have one attempt or more than one attempt, multiple?
Well, I've had multiple, but at the same time too, I feel, anyways, me personally, that any time that you are like right there, like you got the rope around your neck, or you're
Sure.
looking down the barrel of a gun, loaded, safety off, finger on the trigger. To me, that constitutes an attempt. Like your life can end in a split second. Now,
Yeah, for sure.
some,
I don't
some
disagree with
people that
you. Yeah.
there's some people that wouldn't agree with that and be like, oh well, you didn't end up in the hospital, or such and so forth. But yeah, I would say there's at least three or four major ones that I can think of.
So three or four major ones, however you define attempt, that you get to decide, right? For you, when was the first one? How old were you?
I guess my first one was back in 2016.
2016. Okay.
It's always been an escape from something or someone. So back in 2016, I had gone out into the woods, climbed up in the tree stand, and put a rope around my neck. Didn't really tell anybody. I mean, my wife knew that something was wrong, but that's about it.
And what happened?
Well, I don't really mean to be graphic, but
It's okay.
before you, when somebody dies by hanging, you have like a minute, 2 minutes before you black out. And then once you black out, you've got roughly, let's say, like 20 minutes before you die.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just to that point where I was about to black out because stuff was starting to spin. Like you could watch like the trees and stuff get blurry, and then it would look like stuff spinning. Somehow I decided, well, maybe things will get better, and actually remove the rope from my neck. I don't know how, but
Yeah, right. That's interesting that you were able to physically.
yeah, that was the one where I guess I finally decided that, well, let's try this whole getting help thing. Let's at least give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. So up until that point, you had been struggling, didn't get any help.
Right. Well, and I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress back in 2008. So from 2008 up to 2016, you would have suicidal ideations, that kind of thing. But all I knew was, okay, well, you want to escape stuff, so then you kill yourself. But how you do that, all that kind of like all the details and stuff, I hadn't looked into it. So probably about a month before my attempt in 2016, I started doing research, online, that kind of thing of, okay, well, which is going to be most lethal, because I didn't want to just end up making a bad attempt and then being messed up,
Hmm.
probably.
So when you were able to essentially save yourself, you said that you didn't complete it, obviously, and then you ultimately got some help. But I'm wondering, does your wife find out? Do you go to the hospital? Like, what happens right after you take that rope off your neck? You know?
Well, I was talking to my mom on the phone when this all happened because she's always been the one I call, talk to. Because I told her, I'm like, look, before I go, I'm going to call you and let you know. Like I made her that promise.
Wow.
Because she had asked me, she's like, just please let me know beforehand so I don't get a call and be like, the hell is this? So somehow she must have gotten a hold of my wife and she was started up the trail towards the tree stand. She didn't know exactly where the stand was, but she knew the general direction. And I didn't tell her for a couple of days, just because I didn't want to freak her out and stuff. And then one night at dinner, I was like, well, I guess I'm ready to try getting help anyways. Because she'd known something was off.
Your wife, right?
Right. Well, my wife and both my parents, and they were like, "Oh, well, maybe you should get help, whatever," trying to talk me into it. And I told them, I'm like, "Well, that's good and fine, but until I'm ready to help myself, you can't make me get help. It's
Yeah.
not going to do me good."
Hmm.
So then, probably, I think it was like 2017. Finally, found a good counselor, good psychiatrist. They had me take a mental health exam just to find out what was going on, and it came back with borderline bipolar disorder.
Borderline bipolar.
Yeah, and the fella that gave me the test didn't actually want to call it full blown bipolar, but my psychiatrist looked at it. She's like, "Well, we're just going to treat it as bipolar. We're just going to treat it like that." Okay.
Hmm.
So she explained to me a little bit about the mood swings and how it all relates into the suicide attempt. How you can be going good, feeling happy and stuff one minute, and then you step off that cliff and you're depressed, and then you can't climb yourself back out of that hole.
Yeah, it's a beast, right?
Yeah, and since I actually figured out what was going on, I'm like, well, maybe I should at least research the bipolar, some of the suicide statistics, see what all is going on here. Then that'll help me at least relate to my counselor, psychiatrist, I guess educationally, like I can relate to them better.
So, did your doctor who wanted to treat it as bipolar, did she put you on medication?
After we got the results, she's like, "Well, I'm going to try you on a mild mood stabilizer to try to keep them cycling," is what they call it. Keep them
Right.
going from high to the lows. Keep that line more even. And she's like, "Well, we're going to try out a low dose of like the Lamictal and see how it goes." Okay, that's fine. So I've been on the Lamictal for, I think it's a year and a half. In most days, it seems like it's doing okay. But when I need my medication either adjusted or if we need to add one or switch meds, something along those lines, it's always dangerous
Yeah.
for me. And it seems like it's dangerous for people with bipolar since it is a chemical imbalance with your moods. You can go directly from being good and stable to sitting there with looking down the barrel of a gun. Don't know why, but your meds are messed up.
Yeah. You had said, Ruben, that back in 2008 you were diagnosed with PTSD, yeah?
Yeah.
Was that from a trauma or? Do you know what was the root cause of that?
Yeah, I had gone through a bad family situation. Well, that I come out with post-traumatic stress, which really didn't help the whole suicide stuff.
Sure.
And so you mingle the post-traumatic stress with the bipolar, and it makes for a bad cocktail.
For sure. So when you were treated in 2017, and if I understood you correctly, there were a couple of more attempts after that, right? Because 2016 was what you said was the first one.
Hmm.
So what else? Yeah, I mean, I don't want to just jump ahead, but it's kind of an interesting because it sounded like, tell me if I'm wrong here, you got some help and it was moving in a positive direction. I don't know if that's the right word.
Yeah, yep.
But then what happens that you tried a few more times? Can you share that?
A lot of it was med adjustment, trying to find the right counselor, psychiatrist, because unfortunately in the mental health field, that's you got to keep switching them.
Yeah.
So when you're in between the process of all that, you're pretty much back where you started, where you're suicidal. And for me, I've never really told anybody, but I believe the next one, actually the next two, involved me sitting there looking down the barrel of a gun, like loaded, safety off, the whole 9 yards.
So it's your gun. You have a gun.
Yeah, yeah,
I'm just curious. So you loaded safety off. So as close as you can come.
yeah. Like you touch your trigger, you're done. And
You did.
unfortunately, I mean the wife's seen it, but she would just up and leave, go over to her parents, whatever, not even try to help, say anything. She would just leave.
Difficult spot.
Right. Because somebody that's supposed to be your support, you're just gonna up and walk out. Well, that don't help the situation, just makes it worse.
Yeah. Are you two still together?
Yeah, we've talked many times about the whole my mental health problems, the whole suicide attempts,
Mhm.
that kind of thing. And we kind of made a agreement that she won't leave like she had been. Like if I have another attempt, she's not gonna leave like she had. And my half of the agreement was try not to have another attempt. And I say try because with the bipolar, even with the medication, statistic wise, you're like 20 times more likely to either have an attempt or complete.
Right. Do you ideate regularly? Are you thinking about suicide, even when it's not like your lowest of the lows? Is that kind of something that's always there for you, or is it sometimes you're pretty much okay and then you sort of dip down?
It's more of you're okay, and then you dip down, and once you get in that hole, it's you're like, well, this is we're here again, no
Yeah.
way out. Now what?
Even though, as we talk now, you know that it's probably going to change and there will be a way out because it's happened before. When you're in it, it
You
doesn't work that way, right?
know because you can't really focus. You get tunnel vision,
Mm-hmm.
and you can't really reason with yourself. You can't really see all the good that's going on in your life. You just focus on this one bad thing, and it kind of consumes you in the moment.
Do you have any idea why you didn't pull the trigger those two times? Like what saved you? It was the same thing as when you were able to remove the rope.
A little bit, but by the time I had the attempt with the gun, I'd been through the trying to find help from the mental health field enough that knowing that it's always going to be a battle. Well, do I really want to fight that battle? And then you start thinking of, okay, well, the people that have actually failed with that method, unfortunately, most people, their faces all disfigured. They can't, they're wheelchair bound. There's
Mhm.
a whole bunch of stuff that can go wrong.
Yeah.
And I guess a lot of that's been, I guess, what saved me more than the whole wanting to get help. Because from my perspective, anyways, well, I'd rather not live either paraplegic or with a messed up face, that kind of stuff. And then now you're really wishing you would die, but you can't do nothing about it.
Yeah, sure.
Um,
So I never want to put words into anybody's mouth, but when you say something like that, I think to myself, what saved you from not trying wasn't really you wanting to live. It was that you were just fearing living in a certain way, right? Disfigured, paralyzed, whatever else, brain damage to a point where you were essentially, yeah. So, like, as we talk right now, how do you feel about, and this is not a loaded question. I mean, I'm always just looking for people to be honest, which I appreciate you being so open. Like, do you want to live as we talk right now?
right now, my pills and everything are doing good. I guess the fear that I have is eventually the bipolar is gonna get the best of you, almost like cancer, just because it's been that way for so many people that have been diagnosed with it.
It's scary, man.
Yeah, and so I mean there'll be 3 4 months where I'm fine, like able to live normal, won't have any ideations or anything like that. And usually within those 3 4 months, well, it's either time for a pill adjustment or new medication, something like that, which now we're in the danger zone again. And unfortunately, with like you don't really want to die,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of like cancer. For the most part, unfortunately, like you're gonna die. Like you've got cancer clear through your body. You unfortunately you're gonna die. Well, you've got this mental illness, bipolar, schizophrenia, whatever. If it decides to do its thing, even though you've got your meds, because sometimes you can't really just control it. You just feel like eventually it's going to get the best of you. And I've told my dad that. I'm like, I hate to tell you, I don't want to feel this way, but I feel like one of these days it's going to get the best of me.
Mm. That must
And
be really tough for your wife and your parents to hear that, know that that's how you're feeling. That might be true. That is true.
my dad's actually been the one that's understood it the most because I've told him stuff that I haven't told my mom or my wife, especially my wife, because I haven't told her about all the attempts or all the times that you come home and you're like, well, look at the date, October 16th. Well, that sounds like a good day. You know, you just never tell her stuff like that.
Mm.
I guess my dad's reaction, it started out being all freaked out. And, well, I don't know what to say to that. Sitting there in silence, kind of dumbfounded.
Sure.
And I've talked to him about it when everything's good and my head's all level, bipolar's where it should be. I told him I'm like the best that you can do for me is just sit there and listen.
Amen. I think that's something a lot of people who hear this, I would love for them to understand or apply, right? Listen.
Yeah,
People that are around other people who might be suffering.
and especially family members, because I've heard, especially well with my acquaintance that ended up shooting herself. Nobody Nobody wants to stand there and listen to the person. They just want to, oh, well, let's fix this. Let's call the cops. Let's get you up to the mental hospital, all this kind of stuff. Nobody wants to take the time and sit down and listen
Do you have any idea, Ruben, why that is? Just speculate.
because people get freaked out about it. They don't know what's going on in the person's head. They don't understand what the mental illness is. Like they don't know enough about it.
I could go ask people or you over and over again why that is. But even that makes me think, well, why? Why is it such a problem that if you don't understand something, you can't listen? For me, and I guess it's weird for I have a podcast. I obviously enjoy, for lack of a better, I like doing this, right? Or I wouldn't have a podcast. I have something about it that gives me some joy or meaning. So I know not everybody's like that, but it still makes me wonder, like, what is so difficult about listening to somebody, even if, you don't understand all of it or you can't fix all of it? I don't know if that's really a question, more of just like, it just makes me, I don't get it, man.
I think people are scared to hear stuff that they don't want to hear. Like, you don't want to hear, well, this is going on and this is going on. This is not going to change. Well, so why are you here suicidal then? Because that's that's where I go to. I can't you can't look past, oh, well, it might get better. Like, you can't hang on to the might, because you don't know if it is or not. And that's the thing that irritates me too, is people always tell you when they tell you something, oh, well, it'll get better, or, just give it time, that kind of thing.
Platitudes. Yeah. So when you say you'd want them to listen and not do some of the things that you were just mentioning, I mean, do you mean just literally not say anything and just hear what someone's saying?
Yeah, just sit there and let them get it out, because that seems to be the best way to start to come out of that hole, at least for me. And just for them to know that, okay, like, when I get triggered, I mean, suicidal or not, when the bipolar gets triggered, I usually start cussing, like saying the F bomb and that kind of thing. When I'm venting to you about what's going on, don't be surprised if I say, like, well, this is all fucked up and this. Don't be like, oh, well, you shouldn't talk like that. Just let me get stuff out, and then we can start the process of getting better right there at the moment.
Yeah, of course. That's a bizarre response, but I absolutely believe you that people say stuff like that. It's just so weird to me. I feel like it's in a way, and it's a little judgmental on my part, to be frank with you. The level of like interpersonal communication skills, it's like that of a child almost. People are so poor at it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just so incredibly inept.
Yeah.
I think we both agree on that one, right? Have you ever been hospitalized? Have you ever had to go to the hospital to deal with this stuff at all?
Right after my hanging attempt, I went to the regular ER
Okay.
to, I guess, to start to figure out, well, where do I get help for this? And they referred me to I think it's the mental health board, that kind of thing. But as far as being like checked into a mental health institute or anything, no. My wife and her mom, anyways, have said, well, you're on your medication adjustment. Well, why don't we just check you into the mental health hospital? I'm like, well, I don't not so sure I really want to do that. I
Mm,
feel like it make the situation worse, because you're trying to get adjusted to med, and at the same time you're going to feel trapped where you're at physically,
hmm.
and you're gonna make it 100 times worse than just try to keep me in my normal routine and let's adjust the meds.
Yeah.
So fortunately, I've never been in the hospital that direction.
What other things do you want to share with the people who hear this? Because you had mentioned about really wanting to talk about the stigma. That was a word you used when we first started talking. So the other stuff that you want to share around all of this stuff that you'd like people to either better understand or become aware of.
And it really irritates me, the whole thing of everybody, mental health circle or not, they call it committing suicide, when it's not. It's, you complete the suicide,
Hmm.
because you have the attempts and then you have the completed suicide.
That makes sense. Yeah. I
That's
mean,
that's probably my biggest one.
that word,
Yeah.
that word. Yeah, because it does reflect on how we see it, right? For many years, it was a crime. And they
Hmm.
use that word much like they would today with committing a certain kind of crime.
Right.
It's mostly been decriminalized, but I don't think entirely. It's a little bit of a gray area there. But I absolutely understand what you're saying in terms of that word.
My other one is when people are talking with you, especially health professionals. Oh, well, I understand where you're at or where you're coming from. Well, I understand how you feel. And I've looked at some of them and I've been like, really? Well, have you ever sat there looking down the barrel of a gun, you
Right.
know, split second? Well, no. Well, then how do you know what it feels like?
Yeah.
Well, you don't, do you? Well, yeah. No. I hear that one a lot.
Yep. Do you sometimes say something when people use those words or say that to you? Do you say something to them or you just sort of,
I had one, I guess, psychiatrist or counselor. I don't remember what he was, but he tried to tell me, "Oh, I know how you feel. I've been there, all that kind of stuff." And I told him, I'm like, "If you look down the barrel of a gun, well, not exactly." So then he keeps repeating himself on, "Well, I know how you feel, all that kind of stuff." I look straight at him. I'm like, "Have you fucking looked down the barrel of a gun and almost shot yourself?" Well, no. Well, then quit saying you have.
yeah,
I got up and I walked out. I told my wife, I'm like, I'm not dealing with this clown.
good for you.
I'm like, you want to see what bipolar is when it gets triggered? Because he had never seen that. I'm like, that's what it looks like. For somebody that doesn't curse, to point straight at you and curse you out like that. Yeah, that's one of my big ones too, is people that say, "Oh, I know where you're at." I've been there too. There have been a couple people that are actually survivors that have said that, but that they're actually survivors.
Mm-hmm.
They'll follow up with, "Yeah, well, I had done this," or, "Do you remember? You know what it feels like when this happens?" And it's not just like, "Oh, I know what it feels like when you're in that hole." It's usually no. Well, I know what it's like to cut, and I know what it's like to sit there with pills and almost take the whole bottle. I know that feeling of, well, don't really want to do this, but it's an option. Those are the people that are for real, know what you're going through.
Mm-hmm. You had said that you have not really talked much about this stuff with people, right? Or certainly not often, not many people.
No.
I asked you, I think one of the first questions, but actually, I don't know if I asked you this way. I guess you must have heard the podcast at some point,
Hmm.
eventually reached out. So it's just interesting that almost like a switch went off where you don't talk about it. And now you're talking about it. Like, what was that difference? And I'm not looking for you to compliment the podcast or me. I just want to know for you, like, it seems like there's some change in that you're like, I don't know what the word is, maybe a little more open or willing.
Well, I've always wanted to share my story, and haven't really had the opportunity to, because nobody in person has sat down and been like, "Well, what's your story on the whole suicide thing?"
It's not very common, no.
No, because I feel like if my story can give somebody hope for a minute, an hour, a day, it's worth it.
Yep.
Even if it's just that minute.
Yep.
With us survivors, a lot of it is just knowing that there's somebody that's gone through it. Like,
Mhm.
either that you can sit down and talk to, you can message somebody that you have access to, has been there.
Mhm. It's a game changer. Can be.
And when you find somebody like that, you can connect on a different level. I don't want to say a more intimate level, but for lack of better words, we'll just say intimate,
Mhm.
because both have been through that situation. You pretty much know exactly what it feels like, to some degree or another. Like I said, everybody's reasoning and whatnot is different, but you've got that common ground.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, man. I really do appreciate you trusting me and sharing what you did. Any other thoughts about this stuff that you'd like to talk about?
I think to the people that have attempted or thinking about it, probably 90% of y'all have some sort of mental illness going on.
Hmm.
And obviously, we can't sit here and force you to go get help. You have to do that when you're ready. But think of your life as a snapshot, hundreds of little snapshots. You never know when that snapshot's going to change, but there's always hope. I guess try to wait for that next that next picture.
Mm.
Just see what it is.
I've never heard it said that way. I like that. Well, thanks again, Rueben. Especially you're in a car. I know that. So I appreciate you getting creative in where you're talking to me from.
I appreciate you giving me the opportunity and letting me finally share.
I appreciate you doing it, man. Very much so. So thank you. This always sounds weird when I say it, but like I'm glad that you did not complete those attempts and you're still around. If you know, and I have no doubt when people hear this that they are at a minimum feel less alone and maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks for that. All right. Well, stay safe in the great state of Ohio.
All right, thank you.
All right, Rueben. Stay strong, man. Have a good rest of your day or evening.
Okay, you too.
Bye.
Bye.
As always, thanks so much for listening, and special thanks to Rueben out in Ohio. If you are a suicide attempt survivor and you'd like to share your story, I'd love to talk. Please reach out. hello@suicidenoted.com or on Facebook, Twitter @suicidenoted. And help us out. Take a moment right now, if you would. Rate and review this podcast. It really does help people find it. So thanks for doing that. That is all for episode number 52. Stay strong. Do the very best you can. I'll talk to you soon.